And welcome to another episode of the Rorschach Test Podcast. I am your host, Tyrell James. Today, I got a very special guest with me. Beverly, how are you doing today?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So, last week, interviewed my best friend, your husband.
Yep, I know him. I know of him.
Yes, yes, yes. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. And so is his best friend. Um, so
I'm allowed to roll. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to roll my eyes on camera.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So for everybody watching, Bev is like my little sister. So there may be that big brother little sister banter every now and then, but we are going to the same way. Last week I tried, and I think me and Mark did a really good job of making sure we didn't keep people on the outside but of an inside joke. So
I'm shocked.
yeah, I know. Look, we it was hard, but we pulled it off. We pulled
Okay.
it off. So I'm going to try not to do that again. Um, but if I feel the urge to pick on you, like big brothers do with their little sisters, I am going to do it.
It's okay. I give as good as I get.
I
So
know, I know, I know, and
the door is open.
I would deserve
Be
everything you give
warned.
back.
Be warned, podcast listeners. Like the door is
All
open.
right. So for everybody who it could be like your first time, or if it's been a long time since you've seen the show. I don't know why it's been a long time. Don't do that again. But it's been a long time since you've seen the show. Um, so what I do here is I put up a series of Rorschach tests, and I'm going to ask you what is it that you see. So based off of what you say you see, I'm going to link it to what it is that you do for a living and to who you are as a person and to your passions. So before we get into all of that, I just need you to run down the list of things that you do. Give me your passions, give me whatever you want to give me.
All right.
And I'm going to be sitting here taking notes. So I'm in therapist mode here.
Okay.
So we're sitting here taking notes as you're talking. I'll be taking notes as you are telling me what you see on the Rorschach test. So if you see me looking down, I'm not asleep. I'm just taking notes.
You sure about that? All right.
No, I'm not.
No, you're really not. You're
No, I'm
gonna
not.
try to Clarence Thomas me here. So that's the first tip off, right? Is that I'm a lawyer because who makes a Clarence Thomas joke about sleeping while someone's trying to tell you something important?
Right. So let's
That's your
start there with lawyer.
that's your first tip off. So I am a trained lawyer. I specialized in international law and human rights when I was in law school. But now I don't practice formally. I'm a project manager at a nonprofit, an international nonprofit working on digital development. So there's a lot of buzzwords there, but basically, I work a lot in Africa, South America, Southeast Asia around helping governments and sometimes organizations use digital tools essentially to make their work, make their use of information more effective, more efficient, and enable them basically to be able to respond to citizens in a more dynamic way. So in the way that we might take things for granted here in the US around how we apply for a driver's license online or apply for jobs or other ways in which we use the web and other tools to help us go about our daily work, we help to build those kinds of systems overseas. So that's my day job. In addition to doing that project management work, so I manage people and projects, but I'm also actually a special advisor for data protection and data privacy. And what that means is that we care a lot. Again, like my background is in human rights. So now that we're in the digital age, that includes digital and data rights. And we want to make sure that those are protected in what we do because we're building technical tools and systems. How we have to think a lot about what are some of the downsides to what we're building, other ways in which people might be harmed if their information got out there or shared in ways that they didn't expect. So I get to be proactive in helping our team think about what that means and how we can, whether that's developing a software code that protects particular information, or whether that means like training our team members to look out for how they collect particular information. And that's essentially my role within our organization. So that's my day job. I'm a trained lawyer, project manager. Outside of those things, I like to think I have no hobbies, and then I start to listen. I'm like, oh, I care about things. So this is a short list of the things I care about.
Okay.
I love food. I love to cook. But I love to eat more than I love to cook.
Okay.
Um, I love to travel, which is really interrelated to food and cooking for me. And one of the best ways to explore new places is through the food that they eat. So even when I can't travel far, I live in the wonderful city of Washington, D.C., which means I get exposure to so many different cultures and their food. So that's a marriage of DC. So I love that marriage of those two things. I love art, especially contemporary art. And that's, again, sort of where things cross over with travel. Some of the best ways to learn about different cultures is through what they eat and through the kind of art that they make. So I love art, I love food, I love travel, I love to read. I must say I was not always a sci-fi person, but the last couple of years, like that idea of like dreaming about and conceptualizing what the future looks like has become really mission critical for me. So reading and watching a lot of sci-fi, especially written by Black people and Black women, has been a real point of excitement for me over the last couple of years. So that's my jam. Those are the things that I get really excited about if you back me into a corner in a coffee shop and really want to talk about these things.
Got you. So I'm glad you said that you like reading, because you and I. So have you ever thought about writing a book?
Yes, many times. I've never gotten past go, but I think about it. I've got to find a topic that is really worth sticking with over a long period of time.
So you and I are going to write a short story today, but we'll get to that anyway. Okay. So, all right.
Always surprises this one. I can't wait to watch the other episodes of the podcast because I know that they're full of surprises.
Yes, I like surprises. And twist. So we are going to go ahead and get into. Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else that you want to add?
No.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get into a Rorschach test now. I'm going to put up this picture. I want you to tell me exactly what you see, but also I want you to tell me what you feel.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I feel like I see a monster with teeth.
Okay.
I feel it actually doesn't. I feel like, considering that I think that it looks like a monster with teeth, I don't feel disconcerted by it.
Okay.
I'm intrigued by it, which is a little bit weird. I'm like, do I have a thing for monsters? I don't know. But I see a monster with teeth.
Okay. Anything else? You can dig deep into it. Like you can like break it apart also if you want. If not, if you want to leave it at that, that's fine too. But if you want to break it up and you see like different things in the picture, you can break that up too.
So I think a part of why I see it, I might be associating because the last thing I watched before this was, I figure out what it's called. I think it's like The Legend of Boba Fett. It's like part of the Star Wars, one of the Star Wars spin-offs. And there's this wicked like animal thing with like massive teeth that was like taking apart robots, like killer drones. And I feel like the teeth here look a lot like the teeth in that animal. So I wonder if I would be seeing something different if I hadn't just watched that episode.
That could be it.
Yeah, but it's funny because now that I'm like fixated on the teeth in the mouth, I find it hard to describe the other pieces. The other pieces are just sort of, they could be blood, they could be hair. I don't know, but it's not a scary monster. It just has teeth.
Got you. Okay.
Now I'm psychoanalyzing myself. I'm like, what is going on in my life that this is what I'm seeing?
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I forgot to put out my disclaimer. Okay.
I'm not supposed to psychoanalyze myself?
Well, no, this is about me. So I am not a therapist, nor am I qualified to psychoanalyze you. However, I'm gonna do it anyway. All right. Now that I got that out the way, do you want to see the picture again, or can we move on?
We can move on.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. What else do we have here? All right. What do you see here?
I see what looks like part of a butterfly, but it's a butterfly that could be reflected like in a pool of water.
Okay.
Or actually, I feel like I see the central image looks like a butterfly to me. And then I feel like it could be a mirror image on top. a mirror image or like a water image on top. But then I feel like I see smaller butterflies on each side of like the butterfly that I see in the center is like with the wings open, and the butterflies that I think I see sort of in the middle basically are on their side, so their wings are closed.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No.
Did you say yes or no?
Nope. Nothing
Oh,
else.
okay. Okay. All right. So next, let's go. Let's go
I'm so
here.
intrigued by what your psychoanalysis is going to provide.
All right. What you see here?
There's something about this that reminds me of like maybe like ancient Mayan or Incan artwork or like statue work. There's something in the head of the statue. Well, to me, it looks like a statue with wings, and there's something in the head of the statue that like reminds me of like stone carvings and rituals. So to me, what I see essentially is a carving, like a stone carving with wings,
A stone carving.
like an ancient culture. So it could be Mayan or Incan or elsewhere, but that's the vibe it's giving me.
Okay. All right. And one more picture. What do you see here?
So this is interesting because it's like a a cockroach demon god, and at the very bottom, it almost looks like Jesus. There's like a small dude with long stringy hair
Ah, I see. Wow.
jutting out of the bottom of like a cockroach demon god.
Cockroach demon god and Jesus.
I'm
Yes,
really concerned about what is going on in my life.
me too. I think we should stop right here
Yeah,
and
because
seek therapy.
there's like a little like white space like right in the center of like the demon god's head, and I feel like that's where its power. It's like an amulet. It's like something out of Romeo Must Die. Like when Aaliyah is like dressed up as like I don't know, but it's a cockroach demon god. That's all you need to know.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. All right. Let's start with that cockroach demon god. Boy,
Okay,
this is weird. So you saw a cockroach demon god. You saw
with
Jesus
a tiny Jesus head at the bottom.
with a tiny Jesus head at the bottom.
Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
So let's go good versus evil here, and let's go to law. So essentially, in that courtroom, it could be looked at as good versus evil. You have one side representing something, you have another side representing something else. And it's all about perspective because I'm sure both sides feel as though they're right. Or of course, actually, or you may have one side that knows that they're wrong, but they want to appear as if they're right.
Mm.
So essentially in their minds, it's good. Okay.
Mm.
How many times have you been in the courtroom? Have you been in the courtroom a lot?
No, I mostly wasn't a court lawyer.
Okay.
I've
So
been
with
a couple times, but not
So I,
extensively.
I tell you what, because I want to make sure I don't go somewhere different with this than what you did. What exactly do you do with international law? Well, when you were practicing.
So a lot of it was about understanding what the different laws had to say, and then how to bring them down to earth in national contexts. So we want to be able to make sure that these like big fancy laws that get passed in Geneva and New York around protecting people's rights, like they have meaning in a place like Nigeria or they have meaning in a place like Burma. So we really looked at how we make laws accessible
Hmm.
and then break down like the obligations and the ways that rights are protected in those international laws to make sure that they're understood by like ordinary people and ordinary citizens on a country by country level.
Got you. So where I was going with that, it doesn't fit. Tell you what, we'll come back to the cockroach demon and the little Jesus. So let's
Approaching the little Jesus.
let's go to the monster with the teeth. So one of the things, and I'm sorry, I forgot what the title that you said that you have for but you basically you help companies prevent, well, one particular company, just your company.
I guess one of my other passions just showed up.
Yes.
I'm also a mom.
Hey, beautiful. That's my goddaughter, by the way, y'all. She'll probably show up again a couple times.
Definitely.
Um, but so you help your company prevent from data collection of so when other, all right, you use the example, well, when we were speaking, not on here, but the example of Facebook
Mm-hmm.
and how Facebook takes people's, they take the data from people and then they use it to sell to them,
Yep.
basically. So that right there, what has happened is it seems like these companies have become monsters and they have these teeth. They're just trying to eat us all up. Um, they are the algorithm. It's crazy. I could be on the phone talking to somebody about something, or I could be just I could go into Google and just search something, and then all of a sudden an ad pops up on Instagram
Yep.
or Facebook. So what it seems like these these monsters, these monster companies are starting to just take over, and they're just trying to just eat us all up, and the digestion process begins in the mouth. So now it's hard to digest all of this stuff that's going on.
Mm.
But you were the person, well, for your company anyway, you were the one that prevents that monster from even being able to sink its teeth into the company to take that data from them. So are you able to explain the process and how you're able to do that?
Yeah, sure. And actually, it's funny that you sort of framed it that way, because one of the things I said when I was looking at it was like, it's a monster with teeth, but I'm not disconcerted by it. Like, I'm not scared by it. But
Mhm.
that's the real issue, I think, around data privacy and like helping regular people understand. They're like, yeah, well, I have nothing to hide. So like, you can do whatever you want with my data. I hear that so often. And I say, well, here's the problem with that is that one day, if you may not have a problem with it, but other people might, and we've got to set a rule for everybody. That's how rules, laws, and policies work.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that we are prepared for new types of harm. I mean, we were talking about human rights 30 years ago. We meant, well, maybe you don't like stab someone in the chest because they practice a different religion from you.
Right.
That's like still an issue now, but now it looks more sophisticated because you're on Twitter and you're on Facebook. Facebook is a great example. You are trashing someone because they practice a different religion from you. You're inciting people to violence offline by posting really incendiary messages on your Facebook wall. That is basically a layman's explanation of what happened in Burma that ended up causing a bunch of like borderline, like ethnic cleansing, essentially against a Muslim minority in Myanmar. A lot of that basically happened using Facebook. So what I get to say is that how we approach the monster seems innocuous. You're like, well, if someone knows that I like peanuts or I like soccer, I really don't care. I'm like, that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about making sure that you have the right, if I'm using A plus B to equal C, that you have the right to interrupt that chain if you decide that you don't want your information being used that way. Because what ended up, another example from Facebook that ends up happening, you're like, well, I don't mind if people know that I'm a Democrat. I don't mind if people know that I'm a Republican. But when you've said that that's okay across the board, they can now collect that information from everybody and from your friends and from your friends' friends. And all of a sudden, they now have a whole demographic profile of how people vote across the country. I don't know that you necessarily agreed to that when you said it was okay for people to know about these things. Like, you're okay that people know that you're a Democrat, but maybe you have people in your circle who don't want their political leanings to be known, but because you gave access, now they've got access to your friends of friends. That's another real story. That's a layman's discussion of what essentially was the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So at work, I get to look at, instead of waiting for someone to do a journalistic deep dive and expose me for being an asshole, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but
Well,
it
it's
is
too
what it
late now.
is. Too late. Instead of, waiting for someone to expose my terrible behavior, we can think proactively. We can think, okay, we would like to collect this information for this purpose in our program. What are some of the ways in which this could go wrong? If this information landed in the wrong hands, let's say with a government who is particularly repressive, could this put people who we're working with in danger? Could this be collected and added to other people's information to make broad scale assumptions about a whole group of people that could have negative impacts? So this is when we were talking about the Republican versus Democrat example. So I get to look at that and say, hey, we don't have to facilitate that kind of use and exploitation of people's information. How do we guard that? We make sure that we store people's information anonymously. We make sure that we only store exactly what we need. That helps us reduce the likelihood that we're gathering information by accident or on purpose that we're going to end up having to deal with down the line. That means I write a policy that says, for this project, here are a couple of things we want to do to make sure that we're protecting people's information in this specific example. And then we're like building tools or storage or whatever we need to make sure that that stays protected. So I get to be a barrier against people. Sometimes don't realize that there's they should be worried about privacy issues. And my job is again, with the friendly monster, is to let them know that you don't have to be worried about it, but let's be proactive about protecting you from it because we don't know where this is going to go down the line. So that's my job. That's part of my job that I love.
Where do you think this is headed? What do you think the end game is when these companies like Facebook and Instagram decide to take our data? And I mean, I understand that, yeah, they're trying to sell things to us, and I'm I can probably guess that a lot of these companies are in bed with them, and they're paying Facebook so that every time there's a trigger word, somebody says something about furniture, now all of a sudden all of these furniture ads are popping up on there. So I'm sure, maybe a lot of these companies are in bed with Facebook and Instagram, or whatever website, and they so they pay them so that when they search certain things, their products or their company will come up. But do you think that there's something bigger at play here?
Yeah, I honestly do, without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, is that I think a lot of times we like to frame consumer choices as being innocuous, but you don't get to keep data in one corner. If one set of people can buy it, other people eventually start to buy it. What happens is that governments get hold of it, or governments want it too, because if they understand your consumer choices, maybe they want to know how you're voting. Maybe they want to know what kinds of consumer products are going to appeal to you so that they can get you on their side. It doesn't take long for people. Everybody's looking for power and control. And increasingly, we're doing that the layman's way without actually having to talk to people or build relationships with people, but use their data to figure out, to tell us what we think we know about them, to shape their choices, to shape their relationships, and ultimately, more broadly, to shape their lives. And that's what I'm really concerned about. It's not that corporations can't use our information in a variety of different ways, is that we want to be careful that we don't get to a point where we've handed over all of our choices to corporations, because at that point, when corporations are just making decisions for you, we've gone too far. Then we have to start talking about individual choice. What if you want to opt out? What if you decide you want to be able to, maintain the right to make your own choices? Maybe sometimes I have moments where I'm like, do I want this thing, or is this an algorithm that's been shaped to tell me that this is what I want?
Right.
And I think that when I'm ordering diapers for my kid, maybe that's not a big deal. But when it comes to the music that I like my sense as a human being of enjoying art, I don't want that taken away from me. And I think that we need to think about that. Again, maybe art is not the most mission critical example to use, but when we start talking about, governments, if at a certain point will have so much data that they can just sidestep the whole democratic process. If they don't have to come back and consult you, or who your leaders are and like what your leaders are doing and what they're investing in, that's a big problem for me. And a lot of that, the stepping stone for that comes from these corporations and how they are buying and selling and sharing your data often without your permission.
Got you. Okay. So actually, now I want to go back to the cockroach demon god. So, um, cockroaches are everywhere, and just like these boy, oh boy, I should have been writing this down because I had it in my head a second ago.
It's
Just
like
you know,
right
I
on
wanted
the
to put this together. Because I still want to stick with these companies like Facebook and like Instagram. Um, I'm wondering. So when I was asking you, do you think it's something bigger at play? I meant something deeper, something sinister, and that's going back to that good versus evil thing. That cockroach. This cockroach demon god. Cockroaches are everywhere, and they so just like these companies are everywhere. They pop up at the most inopportune times. Uh, cockroaches, they pop up at the most inopportune times. You have company, and here comes a roach. Um, Not speaking from experience, maybe not, but but the same thing when you are scrolling through these websites, when you're scrolling through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter or whatever. Actually, I don't know if it happens on Twitter, and I'm not really on Twitter, but when you're scrolling through, and then these cockroaches or these advertisements start to pop up, do you think that there could be something sinister, something deeper, or is it just for them to sell, for them to understand the way you're thinking? Because when I look at this, I get that they're trying to sell certain things to you. I understand the business. But do you also think, because there are two words that you said earlier, you said power and control.
Mm.
So do you think that there is something sinister, something deeper and darker that's at play here? Because if I know how to sell to you, that also means that I know how you think. And if I know how you think, then I have a really good chance of controlling you and having that power over you, um, kind of like a cockroach demon would. So, so now we have this good versus evil thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be pure and good, and just I'm here just to enjoy my time on social media. But you may have something deeper and darker at play here. So that's really what I meant. Like when I asked you, think
I
it's something bigger at play here.
Yeah, I think we're ultimately struggling with what we've been struggling with for much of history, much of recent history, which is that we largely live in a capitalist society that will do anything to exploit and concentrate power and resources with the few at the expense of the many.
Right.
And now we live in an age where we use digital tools to help do that. We have tons of examples from the last election in this country, in the United States, where what ended up happening with that data that was being sold was that they were targeting campaign ads towards Black people with misinformation to discourage them from voting. Ads that included the wrong voting days or the wrong voting locations, so that people would either get confused or show up on the wrong place at the wrong time and their vote wouldn't be counted. As a Black person in America, I'm very much aware that there are many people who understand how important it is for Black and Brown people to vote and actively work in every corner in legal and illegal ways to make sure that Black and Brown people don't vote, aren't a part of this democracy, aren't a part of shaping what happens in the future. And that is a very American example, but we see different versions of that everywhere. In Nigeria, where my family is from, that looks like making sure that young people don't vote and aren't engaged in democracy, because it doesn't work to many people's advantage when young people have a voice and share sort of how they'd like the future to look different. So for me, the underlying sinister issue is that we continue to live in a capitalist society that wants the elite, however you define that, to corner all manner of resources, and they don't care who it hurts or who they have to take from in order to make that happen. So it's a constant battle. A generation or two generations ago, we were fighting against, the dissolution of labor unions. So now we've eliminated the labor unions. People are starting to organize again, whether that's online or elsewhere. And their powers that be are like, we don't want you. We don't want you to acknowledge that maybe the way that we're paying you, cough, cough, Amazon, or not paying you, or not covering your healthcare, all of these kinds of things, are like, you shouldn't have to accept the barest of minimums that we're giving to you while we're making a freaking fortune hand over fist. Basically on your preferences, basically on helping you learn that, like, oh, you know what, you need a subscription for chewing gum because like you have a chewing gum addiction. Sounds super innocuous, but these are the small and large purchasing decisions you make that make Amazon a multi-billion-dollar company year over year, that eliminate jobs, that eliminate whole supply chains, that eliminate mom and pop establishments as we know them. And to me, those things are done on purpose. It's not accidental. They didn't just accidentally corner the market. They did a lot of really brutal things, used a lot of information at their disposal to crowd out everybody else. And there's a reason Bezos likes that money. Bezos is trying to go to space and leave us on Earth after we done destroyed the environment. We've burned down all the forests. We've eliminated all the water sources. These people are out here trying to get on a spaceship to space, and they will leave the Black and brown people behind on this planet without doing anything to fix it. Yes, I firmly believe, like, I'm into space travel. I love exploration, but I'm also very concerned that we're going to repeat. White people, white male people specifically, are going to repeat the things that they've done generations before on Earth, in the way that they've gone into new places and new civilizations and exploited them for their gain. It has a different face. It has a very digital face now, but it's the same issue that we're still struggling against. So that's those are my 2 cents conspiracy theories, that capitalism is still pretty much evil.
Got you. Okay. Well, you went a lot deeper than I thought you were
Yeah,
going.
see, this is what happens when you open that door. It's like,
Yeah.
now all bets are off.
Yeah. But that's what I want. I want unapologetic Bev, and I love that. Okay, so let's go to the butterfly. You saw a butterfly that it saw its reflection in the water. Okay, so butterflies is a symbol of change. Water is a symbol of, that's something that gives life, right? And speaking of butterfly, hey, beautiful.
Who let her
in? So butterflies is a symbol of change, and water, something that gives you life. So let's talk about traveling. How has traveling caused you to change, and how have these changes given you life?
That's such a great question.
I know I do this.
It's almost so difficult to shrink down into words, because I think that the gift of travel is a gift. It's a privilege. It shouldn't be a privilege, but it is. I think there's travel that's available for everybody at all different levels. My best memories as a kid, as a teenager, as an adult have been in new places, having new experiences, just to remind me that the world is such a big place. There's no way that I can ever know everything that I think that I know. There's still so much to learn. And I think that is humbling, and also gives me like a real drive to be alive and to continue exploring all these new things that I've yet to discover. Travel has given me that sense that you can never get too arrogant. You can never think you know too much, because there's a whole other place on the other side of the world that has a different way of living, of thinking, of eating, of breathing, that you haven't even begun to scratch the surface of yet. And I love, some people might find that daunting, but I find that so exciting, that you can never, every time you think that you know a place, you can go back and explore it and learn it in new ways. It keeps me humble and keeps me curious for the world around me. And that continues to give me life. Either I'm on a trip experiencing what the world has to offer, or I'm planning the next one. And even the act of planning to explore a new place, that gives me energy.
Got you. Okay, and finally, this statue with wings. First, you said something about an ancient Mayan statue, and then you said, I think you kind of summed it up and just said statue with wings. There's something else that you said here, but I can't understand my handwriting. I have no idea what
kind of psychotherapist who's not a psychotherapist can't read their own writing? I think pretty much all of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can they
Oh,
be writing? I feel like they can. Every time you see them in the movies, they're like, "What did I say?"
right. And then doctors, their handwriting is horrible.
They're like
So
famous for having terrible handwriting.
exactly. Yeah, my handwriting sucks. Um, I think I figured out what this word is. I think it's carvings. I think you said
Yeah.
carvings with wings. I believe that's what you said. I
Yep.
want to stick with traveling though. So wings, statues. Tell me about some of the places that you have flown to and some of the things, the statues and monuments and things that you've seen in your travels.
Hmm. I also have some, maybe I answer that in terms of some of the places that I've wanted to go to but haven't reached yet
Okay.
because of how like venerated statues they have.
Hmm.
Um, on my top of my list for many years, from like a purely historical, like carvings and architecture perspective, I would probably say are Cambodia, parts of Indonesia, and I haven't done enough of Mayan ruins in Mexico. Like I've been around the coast, I've done like the whole beachy thing, but like there's so much history to be had
Hmm.
that I haven't yet explored in Mexico. I've been to Mexico a couple of times, but not sort of where I get to like really dig in on that kind of stuff. Same thing with Cambodia, and same thing with parts of Indonesia. So those are the places that I haven't been to. But on the flip side of that, what have I done? I've traveled a lot. I tried to travel every chance I've gotten. I've had a lot of privilege. My parents traveled a lot when I was young. And then as soon as I could, I was like, okay, give me cheap ticket and a backpack, we'll travel. Um, some of the coolest statues I've seen. There's a really great one actually in Senegal in Dakar. And it's great not because it's a good piece of art. It's just it's a great conversation piece because it's actually kind of ugly. So there's
Okay.
the Statue of the Republic. I'm probably misnaming it. It's something along the lines of like a patriotic statue of like a man, a woman, and a child. It's just like the proportions are all wrong. It like the faces look vaguely unattractive, and like if you've ever been around Senegalese people, they're beautiful people. So it's a bit mystifying why the statue, like they just couldn't get the faces right, and it's like gigantic. And then you start to think about like what are the different ways in which this statue could have looked different if
Mhm.
they had like if they really thought more deeply about symbolism and like brought it down to scale a little bit and like relied on the natural beauty of Senegalese people as the root inspiration for it. And then it's funny actually because another sort of statue that reminds me of that is the Martin Luther King Memorial in DC.
Okay.
At MLK's face, like I think he was a handsome man, and I don't think that statue was handsome, and I know I'm not the only person who believes that. Um,
I've never verbalized it, but I've always looked at that statue and
it
said
looks a little weird.
it looks a
It's just
little off.
like
Yeah.
the dimensions are of someone who like doesn't know how to capture the beauty of a black face.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
Gotcha.
So as much as that memorial is an important one, it's not captured well. But statues are funny because they tell all kinds of stories. They often tell the history of the victors. Sometimes, if we're lucky, they tell the history of those who lost, who didn't get to be the victors, but played an extremely important part in history.
Mhm.
Sometimes they capture real, genuine beauty. They capture indigenous knowledge that isn't written down, but is etched into carvings. Like statues can be so many different things to so many different cultures, and that's kind of that. See, that's that thing that like that travel gives you because you get to see these different iterations. Whether you do the memorials in downtown DC, or whether you're in Senegal, whether you're in Mexico or Colombia, you know statues can tell a story, and I love a good story.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said that because guess what? It's story time.
Oh no.
So
Oh no.
we
Here we
we are we're going to write a book together based off of the things that you have said in this Rorschach, well, the things that you've seen with the Rorschach test. And uh yeah, I'm just gonna get a little bit more information from you. So let's start with your main character. Okay, I know I'm just putting you on the spot, but that's the fun. So,
Mhm.
well, for me anyway. So
I was like, yeah, this doesn't sound like that much fun for me, but sure.
I know, yeah, this isn't about you. This part isn't about you. This is all for me.
Oh,
So,
okay.
what would your main character's name be? You can just throw any name out there.
That is not the most. I have a very beautiful child. That is not her most attractive angle.
She is beautiful upside down too. Okay.
You don't have to lie to her. We're not going to do that. We're not going to start that early. What is the
Oh
name of
no,
your character?
God Daddy is not having anybody calling her unattractive.
You know,
Okay.
I knew it was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake when we made you the Godfather. I joke. I joke. No
I
one,
know.
no one better than you for the role. What is the name of the main character? I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know
No,
is
no,
the
no, no, no,
name
no,
of
no. Don't call that the F. Come
you,
on.
you sure? Because
Um,
we can call him
you know
IDK.
what? Okay. The first name that comes to mind is Naftali. I think it's Hebrew for like right or good.
How do you spell that?
Neftali.
Neftali.
Yes.
Okay, what does Neftali do for a living?
Naftali is an adventurer who works for National Geographic.
An inventor that works for National
I want someone to pay me to like go on adventures around the world. That was like the ultimate dream.
Got
I'm
you.
talking
Okay.
like a black female Indiana Jones, but like paid by National Geographic because like the girl's got to bring in that coin. That's the story that I want to tell.
Got you. Okay. So Neftali, who is an inventor that works for the National Geographic. Is that what I wrote? Works? You said works, right? Told you my handwriting sucks.
I mean, yes,
Okay. Okay.
or an
So,
inventor for the National Geographic.
okay. So now we have an opposing character. Okay.
Okay,
Now, what's this opposing character's name?
John.
This is an evil villain. What's their name?
John.
John. Okay. So if John wants to take over the world.
Yes.
What and Neftali is going to have to stop John from taking over the world.
Okay.
Now, what is John's weapon of choice?
Charisma.
Charisma. That's a good one. Okay. And
This is based on real life, bro.
so if Neftali happens to die in the story, what would be on Neftali's tombstone?
Something really colorful, a bunch of cuss words, but I'm not going to use them because my daughter's in the room.
Well, I'll tell you what, just spell them.
On this tombstone, we'll read Naftali, the fight is never over.
No curse words in that.
No, they're on. I chose a new epitaph because, again, my daughter is in the room.
So the fight is never over.
The fight is never over, or a luta continua. Like the fight continues.
Okay. And let's say that John dies. What goes on his tombstone?
Good riddance.
Good riddance.
Yeah, because no one friendly is going to make his tombstone. Because these white males always get to redo their narrative when they die. No, we're not doing that.
It's going to be so funny when my white male friends watch this podcast.
I know. I have white male friends. I love you, white male friends.
I know you do. You have a lot of white male friends.
You've been around my friends. I mean, I went to law school. What was I supposed to do? I love my white male friends, but they also know that like lots of evil things happen because white male people do that. So like,
mm-hmm. Yep, and it's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for people to accept the things that are for them and to not accept the things that are not for them. So yes. Don't be offended by anything that has been said if it does not apply to you. That's the thing.
It's like hashtag not all men. And I'm like, but if you know you haven't done anything wrong, you don't need to be defensive.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, you're on our team. So anyway, all right, back to the story. So Naftali, an inventor who works for the National Geographic, was on a mission
Mhm.
and was met by a monster with teeth,
A friendly monster.
a friendly monster with teeth. But he didn't know that the monster was friendly.
Okay.
What does the monster say to Naftali to let him know that, hey, I am your friend?
Speak truth to power.
Speak truth to power. Okay. So now Naftali and the friendly monster with teeth are friends. So they're walking through the woods and they come across a collection of butterflies that are just flapping around the water. And the butterflies are looking at their reflections in the water. And Naftali and the friendly monster with teeth, they are so enamored by these butterflies looking at themselves in the reflection that they happen to overlook these ancient Mayan statues with wings. And they all of a sudden look up and they're like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This is amazing. And then all of a sudden, John jumps from behind the statue and he
When I
knows,
have a
John
friend
knows.
named John, I'm like, sorry, John, if you ever watch
Right.
this, it's not
so
because I don't like you.
so so John jumps from behind the statue and says, I'm going to take over the world. I'm going to use my charisma to take over the world. And I'm starting with you, Neftali, because you are on a mission for the National Geographic. And you have teamed up with this friendly monster with teeth. And you all are standing in my way, taking over the world. So he unleashes a bunch of cockroach demon gods. The cockroach demon gods, some of them go and they attack the butterflies that are looking at themselves in the water because they are cockroach demon gods, they can fly. So when the butterflies are trying to
This
fly
is my
away,
worst nightmare.
what'd you say?
Cockroaches with wings. Oh my god.
Exactly, isn't that terrifying? So so they are flying and they are attacking the butterflies. And then Jesus, he's little
This
face
is the
Jesus.
worst short story ever. Oh my
This
god.
is your story. These are
You know
all
what?
your
You should
stories.
have told me it was going to turn into a short story because I would have chosen much less wild ass responses.
Well, I'm gonna tell you the
Always
funniest
trying
part
to
about
trap me
this.
into some stuff, Tyrell. Come on.
I'm gonna tell you the funniest part about this. I got the idea to do this 7 minutes before we started
You're
this.
the worst. Now you're gonna have me out here on the internet looking crazy.
Don't worry, I'm gonna do this with other people too.
Cockroach
So you'll
demon.
look crazy with a group of people. So, so now there's this battle between butterflies who all they want to do is look at their reflection in the water, but now they're being attacked, and this battle ensues between them and a bunch of cockroach demon gods. And then little face Jesus is standing on top of the ancient Mayan statue and he's looking down and he's rubbing his little face and he's watching this battle of good and evil. And then Naphtali confronts John, but John has charisma. What does John say to trick Naphtali? Did I say it right? Yes,
Mhm.
Naphtali. What does John say to trick Naphtali into thinking that he may not be all that bad and that those butterflies are bad? And these cockroach demon gods are trying to rid these butterflies. I'm sorry, trying to rid the world of these butterflies because they're trying to attack us.
John says, see, the butterflies are the real enemy here. because they won't allow us to create a new version of what the future should be. And I'm just trying to create room so we can all come up with a new version of how we want the world to look.
John is rather slick. Okay. And then Naftali says,
well, it depends. Do we want Naftali to win? Do we want Naftali to beat John, or do we want Naftali to like believe John and then die?
this is your story.
What is the end of the story?
This is your story. You tell me.
Well, I think Naftali says, John, that's a really nice ideal. But in practice, who gets to be a part, who actually gets to write this new vision of the future? It sounds like it's a new vision that's just for you and for people who look like you. And we can't just erase history so that you can redo things the way that you want to do them.
And then John says,
now you should die because now you're in my way. Charisma has to fail at some point.
So then a fight ensues. But we have to remember, Naftali also has a friendly monster with teeth.
She does. So the teeth.
So, exactly. So how friendly is this monster? Is this monster going to jump into the fight and bite John?
100%.
Okay, tell me about that.
Friendly monsters who you want in a bar fight. It's all good until someone crosses the line and then it's shank shank. That's who you want in a bar fight.
Absolutely.
They won't start the fight, but they'll finish the fight.
So how does
think a little bit about that?
What'd you say?
You happen to have a best friend who won't start a fight, but he'll finish a fight if he sees one.
That's true. That is absolutely, yeah. I do have a best friend that does. Hey, stop trying to distract me. All right, so and stop telling people that my friend finishes fights. So all right. So this fight between Naftali and John now. Okay, so how does this fight go?
Just think of like all of the best, like Marvel, Batman, Superman, high tech, kicky kung fu, blow stuff up, slam people into trees. John's getting cut up, Naftali is getting cut up, like epic battle. And then the monster's in there, like coming in there with the teeth. Bite a chunk here, bite a chunk there.
So who do we want to die?
We want the friendly monster to die first, because you've got to like have like a heart-wrenching moment where you're like, but the monster was really friendly and was just trying their best. So you want the monster to die. Naftali's on her last legs. Okay. And then she manages to take out John. Naftali wins, but it comes at a cost.
Naftali wins and it comes with a cost. So now Naftali stands there, victorious over John, buries John, and creates a tombstone out of this ancient Mayan statue with wings that the little face Jesus is standing on top of. Little face Jesus.
This is a great question, because like, why is Jesus even in the story at all? Because Jesus is not doing anything except watching everybody fight each other. There's some real like critical religious theory going on.
Because we have free will, so he's allowing it to happen. But what happens? This is when
I get in trouble with the church. You know what? You can never post this episode online, because this is how I'm going to get excommunicated from the Catholic Church for suggesting that Jesus just watched everybody kill each other.
So, but it gets better though. So check this out. So
there can't be more. We're at the end of the story, Tyrell.
I know, but this is how we wrap it up. So what happens is, so after Naftali kills John, Naftali digs a hole, throws John in it, then breaks apart this ancient Mayan statue and to build a tombstone. When Naftali does that, little face Jesus falls off of it and he's about to land in the water. But as he hits the water, the cockroaches, the demon cockroaches, they all disappear. And Jesus doesn't go too deep in the water because he can walk on water. So his feet just land on top of the water and he's just standing there. and then the butterflies start flying around Jesus, and then Naftali carves the words "good riddance" into the tombstone. Oh yeah, and the monster. You are a monster now, Bev, for killing the monster in the story.
I
The end.
watched a lot of really good, I watch a lot of really good TV where they just like kill off the people that you really love, especially
Yeah.
the ones who've like redeemed themselves. Those are the ones
What's
that hurt the most.
what is your favorite show on right now?
Mark and I watched the first season of Foundations, which is on Apple TV Plus, and it's set in like a future world where basically the ruling leader of the time clones himself. So at any given time, there are three versions of himself: a baby, like a child, a young adult, and then a senior person. And he's like he's very authoritarian, but he's like ruling this universe. But there's an underlying what do you call it? Like there's a revolution brewing because people want to live in the universe a different way. And it like the production values are fantastic. I think it's based on a novel by Isaac Asimov, who's like a very famous sci-fi writer.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It was really good.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Foundations.
It sounds like something that's very, very intelligent and something that you and Mark, because you two are probably the smartest two people on earth.
You mean big time nerds?
What'd you say?
I don't think I explained it well. It's like much more interesting than the way that I explained it.
Yeah, it's probably just super, super intelligent.
So they call it the shorthand for it. They call it the Game of Thrones in space. So if you ever watch Game of Thrones and you love Game of Thrones, because there's that similar level of like political intrigue, but it's like set in space.
One day,
And
so
future.
so I have a really, really weird bucket list. One of the things on my bucket list is to watch Game of Thrones. Oh,
It's not weird. Game of Thrones is excellent television.
well, it's weird because who puts Game of Thrones on their bucket list? Um, I couldn't get past the first episode, and people keep telling me get
That's
past
fair.
the first episode.
Yeah.
But I also have an issue with just sitting and watching things if it's not sports.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time doing that. I have a hard time sitting and watching my podcast. So
I mean, that's fair. But Game of Thrones, it really does get better. Especially if you like politics and you like psychology.
Mhm.
Like
yeah,
it's just an excellent capture of like the various strengths and failures of the human condition. Like that's really what they're plumbing
Mhm.
through the course of this like magical universe. It's really human beings and the various like screwed up things we do to each other and why we do them. And sometimes we just do screwed up stuff for no reason at all. But a lot of it comes from somewhere. And like that, its ability to capture the human condition through individual characters is outstanding. Like Game of Thrones is such good television.
Yeah. I think it's like a classic story of good versus evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's more complex than that. I think that's why I love those are my favorite TV shows where like it's okay. Where like evil is complex and the good is complex. Like no one is just good or just evil. Almost all of the characters are more complicated than that. And I think that is a much closer version of what reality actually looks like. No one is all good and all bad. People have their moments. And sometimes reasons why they do or don't have their moments come from very real roots.
Okay.
I like that it complicates that.
Maybe I'll give it a shot. I'll try.
You're not looking hopeful. You're not looking
I can start on episode 2 because every time I've tried to watch this, I watch episode 1 all over again. But I think I'm pretty much.
Maybe you just skip it. You just go to episode 2, you go to episode 3, and then
yeah. I heard episode 3 is when it really starts to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I tried a couple of times. I was like very late. I didn't watch Game of Thrones like at the beginning, like the first 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I caught up in one summer, like several years after the show had started. I was not into it. It had been on TV one time, and I was like, I am not interested in this at all. like most things. And then I got into it.
All right. Well, look, we're about to go ahead and wrap up now. First, I just want to thank Little Face Jesus for making this podcast possible.
I'm going to hell in a handbasket. It's fine. It's fine. Thanks, Tyrell, for like putting the nail in my coffin. I'm saying all of the worst stuff. Thanks. Thanks
Look,
for that.
I believe Jesus and God both have a sense of humor. My sister told me that I am proof that God has a sense of humor. So
Your sister's not wrong.
maybe she's right. But and then next I just want to thank you for your time and for coming and for being my little sister and then giving me my goddaughter and for making my best friend such a happy and lucky man. I appreciate
Oh,
everything about
gee,
you,
these
man.
are the nicest things you ever said to me. And they're caught on camera, so now I can go back and watch them every time you
I
try to pretend
forgot
that you
that
like
we were
don't care about
recording.
me. I'm
Mhm.
like, but it's on the podcast.
It is. It is. I forgot.
We love you too. Love you big time.
I
Thanks
know
for
you
having me on the podcast.
So, all right. I don't know if you want people to get in contact with you. I normally
After that show, I don't know. It's a hate mail.
I normally interview like creators or business owners, people who want people to get in contact with them. But
I'm like, I don't want to be found.
yeah,
I
so
don't want to be found.
if you don't want to be found, we're not putting your information out there. Like, so just
Well, you can engage with me sometimes on Twitter. I'm Beverley_HM, I believe. And I check
you
occasionally.
believe.
I jump back in for like whatever the latest drama is, and I'll jump back out again. But if you really want to give me a piece of your mind, Twitter's the place.
Got you. All right. All right. So before we get out of here, I have one more picture for you.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me exactly what it is that you see. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I'm ready. This podcast is so dope, and I just see stars and the universe.
And I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this. I love you, little sis.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to not watch this show. I can't wait to not watch this episode. I'm going to skip around. I'm going to watch all the other episodes. I will not be watching this. My descension into madness. Oh no, I'm good. Thank you, Tyrell.
That is
As,
funny.
as always.
You're welcome. All right. And for the rest
Bye.
of y'all, y'all be easy.